broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
You're unbelievable.
All right, welcome to another 30 for 30 after show here at AfterBuzz TV. That song you're hearing, Unbelievable, is great. A great song, first of all.
Great
Steph,
song,
you were
EMF.
singing the lyrics.
I don't know why, but somewhere when I was younger, I decided to memorize that like chorus of lyrics, and I still know it.
That's amazing.
Don't know why.
I don't know if it'll get you anything now, but it's still good to know.
It got a smile from you. So Kevin John, that is enough.
And I don't smile at all.
No.
So, well, with that being said, who is unbelievable is the athlete that was documented in this last 30 for 30, Bo Jackson. You don't know Bo was the name of it, and just an incredible documentary about such an incredible specimen of athletic and physical gifts. I mean, what did you...
Not even that. What I was so impressed with, my overall, was his mindset. Mm-hmm. He didn't play the game. If he didn't want to do... Like, he wasn't going to let anyone screw him over. And if he didn't want to do it, he wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
And that, for me, I mean, yes, of course, amazing athleticism, a rare breed, so to speak.
Absolutely.
But I feel like... For me, the things that stuck out a lot in this 30 for 30 was the fact that he just stuck to his guns, and he stuck to what he had promised his mom, and he stayed true to who he was. And we don't see that a lot.
We don't. And you know what stuck out to me? The fact that we forgot to introduce our names. I am
it's
Kevin
not about
John.
Us, Kevin.
You can find me. I know, right? They don't care
about
us.
Bo.
It's all about Bo.
Bo
but
knows.
you know what Bo would know? Bo would know that we should do an introductory of ourselves. So we'll just be quick. I'm Kevin John. I'm joined alongside my host, my favorite, Steph Z.
That's me, guys. You guys can tweet me at I am Steph Z with an F. I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hey Kevin John, and I would love to hear from you as well. So yeah, you know, I guess reactions, my overall take that I took from this was Bo Jackson was just a freak of nature. I don't think we've seen an athlete before or after just be blessed with that much pure athleticism and strength than Bo did. An athlete that did not take steroids. And,
interesting.
You know, another thing that, you know, I guess kind of stuck out to me about this was how humble he was. Despite all the gifts, everything that he had throughout the whole thing, but he was a man of humility. You know, he was never boastful, never, you know, showboating. It was just, he just kind of came across as very thankful and grateful, and I thought that was amazing. But let's just kind of get into it. One of the first things they started off with this particular 30 for 30 was the myths of Bo Jackson. Right. And you hear all these crazy myths, like he had went up and dunked a stick in a basketball hoop, and he was standing in water, did a backflip, and
right.
all that other stuff. I mean, when you were hearing those myths, Steph, were you actually thinking, are there some validity to those, or are these just...
I mean, I kind of think there is, you know, still to this day, like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I mean, yes, some of it is probably like the game of telephone where you hear a story and it gets blown up and it gets blown up and it gets blown up.
Yeah.
But, you know, regarding all that, the thing that stuck out for me was when Boomer Esiason was saying like 99% of what you heard was true because this guy was that freak of nature. And it's not like he's a freak of nature. I mean, we say that, but he was just truly gifted. And I mean, I feel like if you ever had a question in your mind whether athleticism is something you can learn or a talent, I mean, yes, people train and get better, don't get me wrong, but some people just have the it, and he had it.
Boom.
So I don't know, I kind of believe he dunked a stick.
I
don't know if he set boars on fire, but he dunked a stick.
Well, let's hope he wasn't throwing rocks at boars and all that other stuff. I mean, that sounded kind of brutal, but the stick thing, I think it depends on how many inches the stick is, you know, because if it's like a 12, no, seriously, if it's like a 3-foot stick and he actually got it in and dunked it, I don't know if I'd believe that. But then again, as we've learned throughout this documentary.
Well, no, they didn't, when they show the illustration of that, it was not a 3-foot stick.
Yeah.
It was a stick. It was a twig.
Yeah.
So, but again, you know, as far as the rocks and stuff, like, we do explore his childhood, and we do explore the fact that he was, I feel like disturbed is a dramatic way of saying, but he was not, you know, the happiest kid. Like, you know, and he figured out how to funnel this anger or whatever he was going aggression into sports. And I feel like, again, that's one of the major reasons why sports are so important across the board for everyone.
Yeah, and you know, I'm glad you brought up his childhood, because that was the next thing that was documented in there. And you know, it talks about him growing up, and I guess part of the issues that he had that I guess you could say may have isolated him or ostracized him at times was the fact he had a stutter. He had a speech impediment, and he was very insecure about speaking and things of that sort. So you wonder if that affected him socially. Also, the fact he was raised by a single mother in a neighborhood where everyone had a mom and dad as well. So you wonder if that kind of, you know, made him feel, you know, where he had to keep to himself, or didn't make him feel as comfortable or insecure around other people. And
yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about your childhood, but for me, it was.
I didn't have one. I'm like Michael Jackson.
You were born yesterday?
I was a professional my whole life.
Sometimes you talk like you were born yesterday. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, I kind of grew up in that same, my dad wasn't necessarily there the whole time. So, and I feel like when you do find something like sports, you feel this sense of belonging. So even though he had this stutter problem, maybe it was socially awkward, I was a little bit more outspoken, and I still am socially, clearly.
Yeah,
but
never would have guessed.
But no, but the serious is that he found this sense of belonging in sports. And I feel like that was one of the biggest things. And then through that, it gave him a safe place to excel and to care. Like, he could care about sports because he knew as long as he showed up and did the work, he would get results.
Yeah.
Where he, in other aspects or other places in his life, he wouldn't get those same results of feeling accomplished.
Exactly. And sports definitely gave him that validation. Or affirmation, however you want to look at it. And, you know, you said something interesting earlier, how you were talking about, you know, if you ever wondered if someone could just be purely athletic, just gifted, I think he is, because a lot of times, you know, you look at talent and you look at skill. And there's always this, okay, what is it? You know, what is the difference between talent and skill? You hear a lot of people say, oh, he's a skilled athlete, he's a talented athlete. Bo was one of those people up until this point that I think relied purely on talent. Now, he did acquire skill, and obviously became, once we get into college, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, you know, when they were just talking about him in high school, which was the next step, and the fact that he can pole vault, and the fact that he can do long jump, and the fact that he can do pretty much anything, like coaches would be like, he would just kind of go over there, stretch, and then, you know, take 2 stretches and just be able to hop into any event and do anything, and not just do it, but like do it exceedingly and abundantly better than anyone else out there. And you just kind of wonder, you know, where the hell did all that come from?
Right.
You know, so anyways, so he goes on to high school, and, you know, one of the things I thought that was interesting, and you being a Yankees fan, probably can maybe relate to this a little bit, but right. George Steinbrenner, excuse me. The late George had, I guess, contacted him, reached out to him, and said he wanted to draft Bo.
Right out of high school, yeah.
Right out of high school. For $250,000. Yeah. But Bo said no. Why do you think? I mean, Bo kind of explained why, but with that much money on the table, especially given the fact he came from a somewhat impoverished background, why not go play for the Yankees?
Because that's why Bo is Bo. Because he didn't, that's exactly what I was talking about. He didn't just take the carrot that was dangling. He knew his path would wind up well, so he didn't have to take the first thing. And like his mom said, we're doing fine without that $250,000. So it was more important to him to stay true to his family, which I believe keeps him humbled and kept him humbled throughout, and keep his word, which a lot of people don't do, you know, and he kept his word. He promised his mom he was going to be the first of the kids to go to college. So that's what he did. And I feel like that was, I mean, not everyone gets a chance to turn down the freaking Yankees. So that
is true.
Kind of just sums up Bo.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking as well. You know, at this time, the Yankees had already run a number of World Series championships. I mean, the legacy was already built. And you think of any high schooler coming out, and even $250,000 now is still a lot of money. Even back then, because this was about 20 years ago, I think, maybe even longer, when it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
So almost 30 years ago. And the fact that, like you said, he Bo is like, look, I'm doing what I want to do, how I want to do it. Just kind of spoke volumes because, most kids.
And again, honestly, if he would have went to the Yankees, I strongly believe his career would have been different.
That's interesting. Well, we're actually going to get into that later. The fact that obviously decisions he did choose still ended up pretty good. It was an unfortunate premature end. But anyways.
Right. But I feel like the way that he developed and learned in college and, again, accomplished that thing for his family that he said he would and being his word, like if he would have lost all that, I don't know, would he have been... dual sport athlete? Would he have just been a Yankee for life? Which again could have been an amazing career. You know what I mean? But I feel
think that's that bad.
But I feel like it wouldn't be the legacy as much as the Bo Jackson legacy is now.
Exactly. And then also you have to realize with baseball, MLB, it's one of those things where even if you are drafted in second, third, fourth round, because there's 6,000 rounds, even if you are drafted, you still have to work your way up.
You
gotta
go
through double A, triple A, farm. Like there's all of these things you have to go through. So it's not even really guaranteed. Whereas with like NBA or NFL, if you're drafted first round, you're on the field that following. Pretty much. Yeah.
So, and it's, again, you're exactly right. It's not like he turned down the opportunity to put pinstripes on and start a game.
Exactly.
It's not what was happening,
Exactly.
So he got to develop again, which stayed true to his character. He got the next 4 years to develop the way he wanted to develop rather than developing in a way that was predetermined for him.
Well, let's talk about those 4 years of development because back to what you said earlier, Bo being Bo and doing what he wants to do, he gets two visits for college. One from Bear Bryant at Alabama and another from Auburn, which is Alabama's rival. They have this history, rivalry history between them. And he had the opportunity to go the other, but he picked Auburn because he was like, look, coach has given me an opportunity to start immediately, as a freshman.
Yeah, I feel like Alabama said, I'm pretty sure they said that they wanted him, and and again, this is the way they painted the picture, but it was almost like it was a little bit cocky. It was like, we want you. Auburn's never beat us. You'll start maybe end of your sophomore year, beginning of your junior year.
Exactly.
And then Auburn comes and is like, you'll start as a freshman. And he wanted to play. He just wanted to play, and he wanted to play by his rules. And that's exactly what he did.
And it's like, you got to respect the guy that turns down $250,000 from the Yankees and then turns down Alabama, two of the best, storied franchises, so he can do what he wants to do. And I think that just kind of goes back to what you're saying. So anyways, he obviously ends up going to Auburn and flourishes there, absolutely just, obliterates the town and plays against Alabama. And we saw who got the higher end of that stick there as well.
He won, and he knew he was going to win. The confidence that Bo Jackson has is you can't buy that. You can't train that. He just had it.
Well, you can shoot that into your arms, and maybe.
Yeah, but again, and it's funny because you mentioned it earlier, and it comes up again. And they actually mentioned it in this 30 for 30 as well. If this athlete and this story was happening nowadays, there would be so much more scrutiny around it because people are, and it's sad because. You can see these athletes were able to be great without any of these performance-enhancing drugs. So when that shift started, or whenever that mentality started of we need something to enhance performance because it's not good enough, it kind of baffles me a little bit because look at these greats that were before any of these PEDs existed.
Well, but you also
I get it's a cycle.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting. You have some of the greatest of greats are before any of this stuff happened.
The steroids era. Well, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying because that's what a lot of people argue. You still have these incredible athletes from the early 1900s on up to now that didn't use these. But then again, you have to realize with the whole steroids era, that was a fad, a trend, and it was something that particularly baseball players used in order to bring their stats up to the...
a fad, a trend. What was A-Rod not out for a year last year? That's the fad. A trend means it comes and goes. People are still using.
Well, I'll put it like this. I would definitely say, especially because there's huge restrictions on it. They do random drug testing. I think that it's kind of went down a little. I'm sure people are probably still using some stuff, but it's not at the height it was at the late 90s, early 2000s when everybody was shooting up. But so
when everybody was shooting up.
No, but
it's part of the game. Get in the dugout, shoot up.
You had wrestlers, MLB players, NFL. It was
everybody.
Everybody. You know? Everybody in the club get tips. All right, anyways. So yeah, there you go. Was that the Nene?
I learned it the other day.
Shout out to Riley Carey, MVP Stephen Curry's daughter, who did the whipping. Anyways, that has nothing to do with this. Moving on. So, while he was playing football at Auburn, simultaneously he was playing baseball as well.
Right.
Which was
crushing it.
I think crushing it pretty much ties it up in a literal and figuratively sense, because even one of the coaches, I think, said he saw he saw him hit a ball, I guess, so far, or maybe that was after he got drafted to the Royals, but I think it was a GM or the coach or somebody had said when he was on the field, he saw Bo hit a ball that was so far he had never heard anybody else, anyone else.
There was two things actually with Bo hitting. The first thing, which we skipped over, was when the Yankees wanted to draft him out of high school, was when he came to practice.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
He came late to practice. The scout came to practice. Practice had finished, but the coach, again, credit where credit is due. The coach was saying, "No, you missed practice. You don't get a look. Like, I'm not gonna make Bo practice more because you're here." And Bo's like, "No, it's okay. I'll take one." So coach threw him a ball in the batting cage. The batting cage collapsed. Come on. That was the first time that someone had seen him and been like,
right.
"Okay, seen enough." The second time was when he took his first batting practice at the stadium, when he hit the ball and it hit the crown at the top of the stadium.
Yeah.
So, and he heard that noise was just something that he hadn't heard.
I think he said only
once
Babe Ruth
before. Yeah,
Babe
something
Ruth
like that.
and maybe one other person was
No,
the only.
it was three. It was
It was Ruth.
the crack of the bat. It was Babe Ruth. I think I wrote it down.
And then it was another guy. I forgot his name.
Gardner? No, not Gardner. I'll find it. Keep talking.
Yeah. So, anyways, so back to Auburn. So obviously he's, like Steph said, he's crushing it on the field.
Yeah.
Put up incredible stats, and then kind of like it happened in high school, he gets faced with another similar predicament in college. Gibson, yes,
that's
who
it was. Sorry, it was bugging me. It's bugging me. I'm back here. I'm present.
You're present now.
Okay,
good.
go
I love
back.
it when you're present.
College, killing it, crushing it.
So he's crushing it, yeah. So then, like high school, he gets faced with another predicament. Somebody from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers comes to, obviously knows how much he's crushing it on the baseball field, but obviously wants him for football.
Dirty.
I think that sums it up. Dirty is a good, sleazy, scandalous. I mean, so basically, and obviously you guys watched it, but he tries to get he flies Bo Jackson out to Tampa Bay to meet with the team. And
right.
I guess, what do they call those? Recruiting trips or whatever the word is. So he goes on one of those, an official one though. Official recruiting trip, which is against NCAA guidelines.
Which is crazy that they lied. They straight up lied to him. Because if you're an NCAA athlete, you wouldn't know, and you would trust that these people, and the thing that sucks about the whole thing was that he was the one that got penalized rather than the Tampa Bay.
Exactly.
Like, Tampa Bay should have lost a pick.
No. He penalized Tampa Bay when they drafted him first overall.
Right.
So.
But what I'm saying, what I mean? By rules and regulations, like, how does the athlete know? Unless the athlete is given a pamphlet at the day one that they're in collegiate sports, this is the rules. You're not allowed for this. Like, why are these players not taught this? Why is there not a class that says, okay, while you're here, this might happen. XYZ coach might try and approach you. You can only do XYZ or else you will not be able to play. To me, that's a big fail for the NCAA.
I agree with you, and I kind of do, I kind of put the blame on Auburn for that because and part of the reason is Bo should have...
Tampa Bay shouldn't have lied either, but I think that the way we need to be coaching these athletes into making better decisions, and I don't think that all of that is accessible, available. Maybe it is nowadays because there's even more rules now with these high school sports.
And it'll come
but not even that. With these high school kids, they're only allowed to go. A friend of mine just got drafted for a scholarship.
You get 5 trips, I think.
And you can only be on campus for a certain amount of time. Like, there's all these rules now that exist that didn't exist back then, and I'm sure like these athletes should be aware of that.
Well, the thing is Bo, to my if I remember correctly, first of all, he should have consulted with his AD, his athletic director at Auburn, to make sure it was approved. But that's when they lied to him but they said Bo asked, like, "Are you sure I can do this?" And they were like, "Yeah." Tampa. When I say they, I'm talking about Tampa Bay. They said, "Yeah, we cleared it." They said you're good to go and things of that sort. So, obviously Bo, at the age he was, not really knowing, was like, "Well, if they said so, I'm gonna trust them. They're an NFL organization. They're not going to lie to me or deceive me." So, but I agree. I think that there needs to be some. and there probably is now in 2015.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm curious about that.
Especially with all the athletes now in college that are getting drafted and things of that sort. So, but you know, the thing that I think that just spoke volumes because it just really showed how just, you know, how basically just how shallow and how grimy the business is, the sports business. Right. You know, and I'm not trying to.
It's gotten worse.
I'm not trying to tarnish.
No. I get what you're saying.
But it just really shows. It's really they're out for themselves. It's me. We can care less about what happens and the ramifications.
But it's kind of dumb because they lose. I mean, if Tampa Bay would have approached Bo and said, "Listen, we want you to know that," and again, this might be against the rules too, whatever, but if they said, "Listen, you can't come until your season's over, we're waiting for you," like they could have made him aware and been feeling this and know his option rather than completely canceling him out. Like they knew he was going to get in trouble and wouldn't be able to play baseball, so therefore they were hoping that he wouldn't get any offers for the MLB, which is just horseshit.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. That you know, more than anything that he lost his eligibility was the fact that he couldn't continue playing baseball, which is what he wanted to do. And you know, like I said, it was horrible, but I do think it did end up biting them in the back because they had a number. How many times as an organization do you get a number 1 draft pick overall? You know, well, unless you're a team like, you know, the Raiders that pretty much gets
Tampa Bay gets
Tampa Bay, who actually got him this year, right, with Jameis Winston.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you know, unless you're a losing team like that gets like once every few years, you rarely get them. So I think they really burned themselves. That's their karma,
man. They have the curse of Bo. The Bo
right?
curse. Yeah.
The Bojo curse.
The Bojo curse. I'm calling it now.
Yeah, and they totally brought it on themselves. But Bo obviously would be able to redeem himself. You know, and this was another interesting thing that goes back to what you said earlier, how Bo was like, I'm making my own decisions. So then, you know, fast forward a few months later, they do end up picking him with the first overall pick in the draft, and Bo was like, no way, you're stupid.
Which was amazing. So not only did he say no to the Yankees, he said no to a first round NFL draft pick.
Who does that?
Bo Jackson does.
I know.
Because he's got
Bo
heart.
knows.
Well, because he's got heart. That's what they said. You know, he's just got heart, and he's got his word, and he's got his dignity, which he never lost through any of this, which is rare.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, if anything, I think to a lot of young athletes watching that, his, you know, Bo exuding dignity and heart and stuff like that, I think that's just so inspirational because when a lot of athletes now, I mean, you do have some of good character, good morale, good, right, but these Bows are just very rare. You know, these athletes that will stick to their guns and do what they feel is right, you know, for their own integrity, dignity, or what have you. So, you know, you just really you appreciate Bows.
And it's almost not their fault though. Like ultimately, they grown men and women, they can make their own decisions. But there's so much more persuasion, and there's so much more money, and there's so much more manipulation now that goes into the business of sports, I think. Which again, I love sports. Whatever. I'm not trying to say it's bad. I'm just calling it like it is. Yeah, but, like, you know, but it is. We would be idiots to think that it's just, oh, no, you said that. I high five, got you on your word. You know, it doesn't work that way.
Well, you know, it kind of makes you think of now, you know, even in this generation, you know, if you think of athletes getting improper benefits, obviously one of the most highly notable, because I didn't mention Bo won the Heisman, which we obviously know. Right. Another Heisman winner that had to suffer was Reggie Bush, who actually had to end up vacating not just the Heisman, but that season, because when he was coming out of college, I think some agents were trying to woo him, and they bought him a house and bought him all these things. And I guess, I mean, I don't know the stipulations or ramifications to that, but apparently it's illegal.
Yeah, they broke the rules.
They broke the rule, and then he ends up getting screwed. And, you know, he won a coveted trophy, the Heisman, and now he can never say, I mean, he can technically say, yeah, I won the Heisman, but it's still taken from him. And I just think it's unfortunate that the athletes are the ones that have to suffer when it's these organizations and other people that are being shady.
Which, again, is why if the athletes know, it's like you can lead the athletes to the water and then they can decide. Like, if it was legitimate that they know. Yeah, I mean, you gotta know.
Yeah, I don't think he's that foolish.
But then it's like, if you know it, then are they that dumb? Because then it's like, why do you not then just get that house in your brother's uncle's sister's name and live in it? Like, come on, there's ways that, like, if people know the rules, there's way to get loopholes around the rules. So there's got to be some gray area.
I guess that is true. That is true. Because, you know, but anyways, I mean, obviously, just to make the correlation between the two, it seems like it's a continuous cycle, and
right.
Who knows if it will ever, if it ever be purely a sport of integrity. But at any rate, I love sports too. So moving on, he opts not to take the number 1 pick overall, and then ends up in, I think it's a supplemental draft, or they had an NFL draft that was in the next year in '87. But the funny thing is, he ends up getting drafted like in the 7th round, I think it was, which is currently, and nowadays it's the last round of the NFL.
Right.
In '87, I don't know how many rounds they had, but he gets drafted 7th overall, and it was fun because the Raiders, and big shout out to Al Davis. I mean, God rest his soul, incredible owner.
Right.
But Al Davis was the one who took a chance with him because he heard that Bo, had an itching to go out and play football, and someone had spoke to him. And I also think this, speaking of Bo's decision, if he did end up going, number 1 overall to the Tampa Bay, because we talked about, if he went to the Yankees, what would have happened? If he ended up going number 1 overall to Tampa Bay, he would have never played baseball.
We kind of skipped over that. Like, he played for the Royals for a full season and said no to NFL and was like, oh, that's cool, I'm out, checked out. And then I believe he got a call from his agent that said, hey man, do you want to play football? And he says, for who? I'm not playing for Tampa Bay. And that was when he got the Raiders. But I feel like, what he did and how he kept his composure and went with and played baseball. And I mean, he was a great baseball player.
Awesome.
Like he could have said no to the Raiders and continued and had a great career in baseball, and maybe would have never gotten hurt.
Yeah, and may have been a Hall of Famer, in baseball.
I can't believe he's not a Hall of Famer in either sport.
Well, I'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But it's funny. One of the best parts of this whole thing was when he was with the Royals and he got the call from his agent about playing football for the Raiders. And he had like a little mini press conference, and he was like, "Look, anything that Bo does in the off season is a hobby to me."
Right.
And
right.
How can you say, when you are getting drafted into the NFL and arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL, just say that's a hobby? Like, that's how incredibly just gifted this guy was.
Right. Well, yeah, because you got to remember, this is the guy who's like, I don't want to run during practice. That's a waste of time.
Yes, that is
Who
right.
says that?
Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson. And, I almost wanted to say that too. And this is not to throw a stab at Bo, but the fact that he got into an argument with this coach or bumped heads due to excessive conditioning,
right.
Working out and things of that sort, which is common in any, in collegiate sports. And do you think that Bo maybe, because he was so freakishly gifted, that maybe he took for granted the fact that he was such a good athlete and maybe didn't put as much effort in conditioning?
It's funny you say that, because I kind of tried to look at both sides of that.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you that if maybe he would have practiced more, whatever, he could have been even that much better.
Yeah.
But in the same sense, sometimes if his mentality was strictly that I don't want to get hurt, I want to save it all for the game because I'm that talented, which again doesn't necessarily fly, but I could
That's
try
a horrible
and
mentality.
I know I can try and see if that was the mentality, but I don't agree with it. Like I can get maybe, because what else would he be thinking? Because he doesn't come across as the guy that's just like, I'm too cool for practice.
Exactly.
I'm not a team player.
Practice? We talk about practice?
But you know what I mean? Like I feel like he wasn't that cocky guy that was like, I don't need this stuff. So in his mind, there had to be something else. I'm training year round. There had to be something else. Mm-hmm. Again, reaching for straws. I don't know that I agree with. That
obviously, I wouldn't tell that to athletes or any young athletes.
No,
now.
you got to practice.
You gotta
practice.
Exactly, practice. But you kind of went back to what I said in high school. Was like anything he picked up or did, he was phenomenal at with pretty much no training or backing in. So you just kind of wonder if he was like, just kind of was able to rely on his God-given nature, and maybe that, maybe, I don't know, inspired him not to work as hard. I don't know. I'm just, I'm just putting that out there. But at any rate, like you said, he got the call. He was a 7th round draft pick, went over to the Raiders.
Right.
And it was funny. I think he had in his contract that he wouldn't be able to join. I guess he wouldn't be able to play until October or something. He had to miss the first two games.
Yeah, because he said he wouldn't play. He wanted to finish out baseball season.
Yeah. He wants to finish out baseball.
So I believe it was the first game. He played the second game. He only missed one game. Like, of the real. He missed preseason and one game.
In one game, yeah.
Something like that. Or it could have been two, but I'm thinking it was one.
So this is an athlete, mind you. And we all know, you're a football fan. I'm a football fan. We know how comprehensive training camp is. And he said, I mean, it is from sunup to sundown, physically drooling, mentally drooling, emotionally drooling. You put a lot in. And the fact that Bo, and I'm not going to say he skipped that because obviously he was playing a sport. So he had
Still was baseball.
But I mean, it is what it is. But at any rate, the fact that this guy just skips all of training camp, comes in like the second game, and then just starts dominating on the field without any of that preparation that all these players go through is just, I think, another testament to just his, ridiculous abilities.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And
I mean, like, and he came onto the field. It's not like he came onto like a crappy team. Like, he was running next to Marcus Allen and
right?
and beating him in competition.
Yes.
Like he was
right?
like, that's who was on his team that people knew, and then he, not necessarily beating him, but he started shining over Marcus Allen.
Was kind of drying up at that time anyway.
Right, but still, it's not like he was the only person on the team.
Yeah.
Like, there was another athlete that was really good that had, a big notoriety that he was playing with, and kind of just whoop right over.
Yeah, exactly. So, anyway, just to kind of speed things up, so he obviously ends up playing with the Raiders for a while, and he's going back and forth, and he's obviously excelling in both sports. One of the things I thought was interesting, he was the first person out of all, I mean, there's only so many two-sport athletes other than Deion Sanders, a few other, but he's the only person ever to be named in an All-Star game or Pro Bowl in two different sports, as he was,
right.
MLB All-Star, NFL Pro Bowl. So, everything's going well. He's playing both sports. And then he has the catastrophic hip accident, which is funny. When I was watching it, I kept rewinding it, too, to look at the play when he
didn't even look that bad.
And it looked like it was a routine tackle.
It was
like,
yeah.
You look at that over and over again, and you're like, wow, how? But I guess it was just the way he fell.
It was the way he fell, and how the someone was saying, like, the trainer or something, because he was so big and he was so strong.
Oh, his momentum.
He was able to keep going and drag him a little bit. The tackler, whose name escapes me, but so that's why it got so bad. If he would have been a little bit weaker and fell right away, it might not have gotten so bad, which is crazy to think about, because you think you should be as strong, as tough as you can. Yeah. But that actually hindered, the tackle and made it worse.
It did. And it was unfortunate because, even Bo at that time, because, Bo said he's endured a lot throughout his life, but he was like, when he felt that, knew that he was done.
I don't know if you've ever felt anything dislocate.
I dislocated a finger before, and that hurt like a son of a gun.
I've dislocated a shoulder, and I've seen grown men drop to their feet, drop to their knees crying.
I saw Kevin Love when he did his in the playoffs.
I mean, it is painful. I couldn't imagine my hip. Oh!
My God, yeah. Just think, and it's funny because, after he's in pain, but he's all coming off the field, all still giving a thumbs up to his wife, kind of like, I'll get through it, even though he knew, obviously. And that was one of the things I like. He said he didn't want to show to his family and his teammates at that point in time how bad he knew it was. So that's why he was trying to kind of play it off like, yeah, I'll be back out here. But obviously, so fast forward, he has to get hip replacement surgery. Right. And they pretty much have written him off on all sports. What athlete comes back with a artificial hip?
Bo Jackson.
I know, right? Bo Jackson. So, and meanwhile, another thing we didn't really touch on is when this happens, it's in the height of his endorsements and his bigger than life image.
Man, did you have those Bonos?
I had Bo Jackson shoes, the cross trainers.
I had them too. And they're re-released them now.
They did, yes.
Yeah, I was like, I had those shoes 20 years ago.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic.
The cross trainers, that's right. Bonos. Spike Lee. Bono.
Yes.
That was the major commercial for me growing up, all that Bonos stuff.
It was.
Yeah.
And you forget how, at one point, I think even Nike was saying that Bo was almost getting bigger than Jordan with all of his commercials and
the campaign. I feel like they were saying that Reebok was number one, and then the Bow Nose came out and made Nike. It surpassed Reebok, and Nike reclaimed number one.
Exactly.
So that's pretty freaking huge.
It was
just saying.
It was just gargantuous.
Yes.
And but anyway, so obviously, despite all that happening, he's in the midst of this huge, deal, and then so he does end up coming back from hip replacement surgery because Bo can do that. But he's not the Bo that we once saw. And that's funny. Even Bo at like 50% was still better than like a lot of other baseball players.
Right.
But so unfortunately he, kind of has an unceremonious, abrupt just, retirement.
Yeah.
And the legacy of Bo Jackson, as we know it, is gone after just 7 short years. I mean, I think he was 28 when he stopped, when he had to get the surgery. And then when he retired from baseball, it was just a few years after that, I think.
Well, he came back. And that was crazy. I remember they showed us that he said to the Royals coach at the time, I'll be back. And he was.
Yeah,
so again, it's like this man's word is crazy. It's he says what he does. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing.
And he not just says what he does, he delivers on that.
Right.
So real quick, as we wrap it up, I guess my question is, and they kind of touched on this during it, he decided to play 2 sports. If you think Bo just focused on one, either baseball or just football, that he would be in the Hall of Fame for one of those respective sports.
Yeah, and I think football.
You think he would have been in?
Well, because I feel like there's a lot more ways to shine and stand out in football, I think.
Yeah.
Baseball, like you can hit a bunch of home runs, you can field the balls. Yes, but I feel like in football you get to know a player better, you get to see more of their athleticism, their agility. I feel like there's more of an excitement with the player because they get the ball, you never know what they're going to do, Derek Jeter gets up and hits another home run. Awesome, but you've seen him hit that home run time after time after time. It's that same home run. Yeah. I mean, granted, it goes to different places in the ballpark. Yeah. But with a football player, it's like, oh, is he going to cut this way? Oh, is he going to run that way? Oh, is he going to get the 3 yards? Oh, is he going to get 20 yards?
Is he going to spin off 18 people and then go left,
what's he going to do?
Yeah.
Are they going to give him, the wildcat? Are they going to give him the flea flicker? What? He's going to go deep. Like, what's going to happen? There's a lot more showmanship in football in that aspect, and I feel like that would have made him shine more and then would have been more eligible, quote unquote, for a Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the saddest things, that arguably one of the greatest athletes of the 20th century is not in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's kind of
he's in the College Hall of Fame, I believe. So, but that's still not professional.
No, Bo should be there.
Yeah, he really should. And I think they should make an exception for him just because of his contributions to the sport and the fact that though he didn't have a career of longevity in either one, just what he did in the time that he was there definitely should qualify.
He's a household name.
Yeah, and
he
still will be for years to come.
Yeah.
All right, last question.
What's that?
All right, Bo's a great athlete. Any other athlete who is second to Bo as far as overall just athleticism that you've seen in the last 50 years?
I mean, Michael Jordan comes to mind.
Jordan? Well, he played baseball and basketball, so he was a 2-sport athlete. Yeah. So that's that. I can take that. I'll say LeBron, because I still think LeBron could be a tight end in the NFL right now and be a Pro Bowl tight end if he wanted to. Just saying.
LeBron's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, I used to not be a LeBron fan, but he's grown on me in the past year and a half or so. So, and he's pretty amazing. And the way he handles himself now with media and stuff, I feel like he does have. I'll give you LeBron.
He's grown. All right. Well, you know who I am a fan of? This person right here, Steph Z. And for your fans, where can they find you at?
You guys can find me on all the social media platforms at I am Steph Z with an F. Keep the conversation going. I'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. And I'm Kevin John. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at HeyKevinJohn. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for another 30 for 30. This was fun. One of the best athletes ever. We're going to be back here again in another 2 weeks, and we'll do, I don't know, tweet us in which 30 for 30 you want us to do.
Perfect.
So, all right, good deal. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you till next time. Bo, you're unbelievable.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.